When setting up a customer within X3, the user first starts off by clicking on the New button. From there, the user will be prompted to specify the category that the customer is associated with. The active flag is an indicator as to whether or not you're permitted to conduct business with the customer. The customer ID number, this is something that one can have be automatically assigned based upon a sequence number definition found on the customer category. Down here on the Identity tab, one is permitted to first assign a short title, an acronym, then the legal name of the company, from there onto the Address tab. One can load in the address code, the street address, zip code, then the city and state will default for you based upon that. And the other particular information on the company. Over onto the Commercial tab, the company classification is found. If there's any minimum order requirements for this customer, they can be defined. This order close flag is an indicator as to whether or not it's permissible for authorized users to force close a sales order. If you wish to have the ability to loan goods to the customer, this box can be set. If one wishes to establish a one-to-one relationship between an order to the customer and the respective shipment records that are generated, this box may be checked. In the partial shipments section, this is where one can come to establish the shipping rules against a sales order. The first setting meaning that a partial shipment is allowed. The second line meaning that a partial shipment is permitted so long as the particular line on the sales order is complete in full. Then the last setting here, the ship order complete, as an indicator that the order is not permitted to be shipped unless all the line items have been filled in full. We have our unit price indicator here as to whether or not the unit price is inclusive or exclusive of tax. We have the due date basis as to whether or not our aging clock should start based upon the date of the invoice or the date of the shipment. We have our sales rep settings down here. We can have different categories of customers. If some customers are maybe of sales to certain categories of customer, entitled the sales representative to a higher or lower commission rate, that can be established. Your sales rep code can be defined. X3 permits for both a primary and a secondary rep. Down here we have a print acknowledgement setting here if it's wanted to print a sales order out upon order creation. Then the template code can be leveraged as a means of creating specialized documents for customers that have particular demands as it relates to their invoices or acknowledgments or shipping forms. Here in the lower right hand corner we have our discount and charges. These would be set rates associated with freight charges or customs charges or other miscellaneous fees that you wish to have manifest on your invoices to your clients. Over here on the Controls tab, there's an area for you to assign your supplier identification number in your customer system. If you're conducting business with this client in foreign denominations, this rate type setting will be of concern. Down in the Orders to Process section, this allows for different credit controls features to be instituted on the customer. We have a check setting that's going to evaluate the total credit that the customer has outstanding with you, which will be inclusive of both open accounts receivable and open sales orders and backlog. We have a no check setting, meaning that one is permitted to continually entering in sales orders and credit isn't of concern. Then we have a hold setting which can be instituted, which will make for all sales orders entered in for that customer to automatically go on hold. Then the appropriate or the authorized individual within the company would have to release each order for shipment. Down here in our notes section, these are for internal notes that will manifest themselves during the course of order entry once the customer ID number is specified. Over in the right-hand section here, we have statistical group settings. These are additional ways for us to classify our customers and do detailed analytical reporting against these groups. In addition to that, features such as price books may also be based upon these stack groups. Over here in the Financials tab, the BP section here details your respective bill to accounts and pay to accounts. This pay to customer is particularly useful insofar as if you have consolidated billings to certain parent company organizations, that pay to code can be leveraged to model that. So that is to say, you could have two different companies that you conduct business with. Those companies may be sister companies from which payment of all bills that you send to them come from a common parent corporation. This pay to could be leveraged to model that type of scenario. Our accounting code here is what governs our accounts receivable charge. We have our tax rule setting here, indicating as to whether or not sales tax payable needs to be accrued for during the invoicing process. Up in the payments section, we have the payment terms on account. The settlement discount would indicate as to whether or not the customer is entitled to an early payment discount if they remit payment within a truncated time frame. The default bank account associated with the customer, in this case the account to which all funds should be deposited. We also have reminder settings in here which can be leveraged when you're pursuing collections against the customer. Then we have our analytical dimension settings down here, which allow for us to compartmentalize our sales activity to this customer on our books. So that is to say, in this model, we could leverage these dimensions for a sales channel, project code, and region to compartmentalize both our cost of goods sold and our revenues that we realize on sales to this customer. Over on our Ship To tab, for all our addresses that we establish that we intend on shipping product to, we can establish our Ship To customer. In here we have an active setting. We have a setting here if we wish for this particular address to be our default. We have a tax rule setting that can be instituted. If you have variability in sales rep based upon Ship To location, that can be modeled here on the Ship To tab. We Have a shipping site that can be established. So that is to say, if you have multiple warehouses, and prototypically whenever you ship to this particular location, if the goods are intended to come from a particular warehouse, that can be defined here. Different loan locations and subcontracting locations that can be established when necessary. You have routing. If one manages your own trucking fleet, we have these routing numbers that can be useful in the generation of our packing slips. You have the default shipping mode and carrier associated with the customer. In our delivery lead time, we can specify the typical number of days it takes for the goods to be delivered from this warehouse to our customer's premises. We have our FOB terms here. Over in our reports section, we have indicators here as to whether or not packing slips or picking tickets should be generated, the default work days that this particular client is open. Over here on our bank number, a bank ID number field, if we wish to capture the particulars of our customer's banking details, for instance, if we conduct business with them on a wire transfer basis, those particulars can be manifest here. Then over here on our contacts tab, this allows for us to come in and establish contacts with the customer. And those are the primary fields that are in the establishment of a customer file.